You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hello, this is Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. For over 16 years and 2,400 episodes, we've been bringing the Chris Voss Show because, damn it, you guys just seem to be listening to all these podcasts, like 96% of each episode you listen to, front to back. I don't know who's cutting out at the end. You probably know when I'm rounding and you just skip to the next one. But thank you for listening. We certainly appreciate it. Today we've got another Tom Clancy author on the show. We've had them all except for Tom Clancy himself. There's probably a reason he's not returning our calls, but he's not around anymore, unfortunately. But we continue his legacy on the show. We have the author of the newest book in the series of the Jack Ryan Jr. novels, Tom Clancy, Line of Demarcation, the Jack Ryan Jr. novel, book 13. And it is out with MP Woodward. And let me see if I can get a date on that. The audiobook never shows the date. May 20th, 2025, it's out. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss, one of the TikTokity, and Facebook.com/Chris Voss. We'll be talking today with MP Woodward. He makes his fourth appearance on the show. I think at 5, we have to give him one of those Saturday Night Live robes or something. I don't know. Is that what we have to do? There's something like that. MP Woodward is the New York Times bestselling author of the Tom Clancy Jack Ryan Jr. books, Shadow State, Line of Demarcation, and the Handler CIA espionage series from Penguin Random House. He served as a U.S. Naval intelligence officer before going into a career in tech. Welcome to the show. How are you, Mr. Woodward?
Good, Chris. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back. We really appreciate having you. It's always an honor. Give us your .coms. How can people find out more about you on the interwebs?
Yeah, mpwoodward.com. And then MPW author on Twitter and MP_Woodward at Facebook.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 RE. What's in this new Tom Clancy novel?
Well, this is because it's a Tom Clancy book. There's a geopolitical intrigue involved. And in this case, it's the Russians teaming up with narco terrorists out of Venezuela, trying to pull off a Crimea down in Latin America this time, but a fait accompli as they try to snatch some geopolitically important territory in the country of Guyana, where there has recently been a massive real-world oil and gas discovery, and American interests are there developing that right now.
There's always some of that political intrigue, you got to save the world sort of stuff with pseudo, what would you call it? Like spy warfare, maybe?
Well, we call it hybrid warfare or gray zone warfare. Things like that.
In the gray zone. It sounds like Mission Impossible where, we disavow anything. It's in the gray zone.
Indeed we do.
Yeah. It's not like most of the CIA work, really, the gray zone, as you've studied over time. So what prompted you to take course with the settings and nature and character this time that maybe might be different or the same? Or what were some of the things you did in your choices on designing the book?
Yeah, the first off, the Tom Clancy name and writing in this series, that's a brand, right? It's kind of like saying that the Marvel cinematic universe and a Marvel movie without superheroes would be weird, right? Well, I think a Tom Clancy book without geopolitical interest would also be weird. So I was looking at flashpoints around the world, and in the real world, this small country called Guyana, that is the only English-speaking country in South America. They're an American ally. They also happen to be a tiny neighbor of Venezuela, and it's a country with less than 1 million people, and they have had a Saudi Arabia-like discovery of gas and oil just off the coast there that will soon make the Guyanese the richest people per capita on Earth. So
wow.
This enormous discovery is going to do things like upset global oil and gas markets, and that's not going to make the Russians happy. So they're trying to head all this off by basically flipping Guyana into their orbit in the book. And I thought that'd be an interesting premise.
What made you choose Guyana?
Just the fact that, well, first of all, Venezuela, who shows up on the bad guy list quite often, they claim they're already claiming this oil and gas discovery. So there's a region. These two countries are on the border, and a river separates them. And this oil and gas discovery is right out off of that river delta. And so this region, this disputed region, happens to be called the Essequibo region. Venezuela has actually moved tanks there. They've threatened it. Marco Rubio was there, I think 4 weeks ago, telling the Venezuelans to knock it off. So this is one of those crises that is flying under the radar for us most of the time. But that fits things like fiction really, really well.
There you go. I mean, it's kind of interesting that you wrote the book, and here you're current on the times when it comes to our politics.
Yeah. I don't know whether to be happy or sad about that because I have a second Tom Clancy book up for pre-sale that comes out in September. That'll be my third one, called Terminal Velocity, and it takes place in India and in between India and Pakistan in Kashmir. And I set that up as, Pakistan's going to have terrorists that attack India, and then India's going to respond, and then boom, this was all happening in the news a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, whoa, that's a little scary, two nuclear armed countries.
I'm just I don't read the news anymore. I just read your Tom Clancy novels to find out what's going to happen.
As it should be. You learn a lot more from me, trust me.
It definitely gives it a validation that, hey, these things are happening. Do you study did you just pick Guyana, or did you study that you kind of felt like that was a future hotspot? Do you kind of use some of your military intelligence background to determine that?
Yeah, a bit. The other funny thing is that this was before I went down to Panama. So this was last year, and I was thinking about a plot that involved the Panama Canal, and then I learned a little more about the geopolitics in that region, and settled on Guyana just because I think let's call it resource politics, right? Like very recently, what's been in the news with rare earth minerals, right? This deal with Ukraine. We've been talking about oil as a driver of politics and war for many years, and even with Russia and Ukraine, you have the Russians trying to really use gas supplies as leverage against Germany. So the thought of this happening in South America, where it's closer to home, was really interesting to me. So that's how I ended up thinking about it.
Oh wow, there you go. So is anything as the character developed, or what stage is the character in? Because I know some of the Tom Clancy's will do regressive stuff, though, so they'll go back and then forth, I think. Is that this way with this one, where is he moving forward or backward as a character in development?
So in the Jack Ryan Jr. series, this is really the generational series. So you do have crossover characters like John Clark and Mary Pat Foley, and Jack Ryan Sr. Is in the book, really almost like a cameo. But the action centers around Jack Ryan Jr., and I've been evolving him as a character, in literature, if you will, and trying to mature him a bit. So I inherited him. He was probably in his early 30s, and he came into this series kind of in his early 20s as a really impulsive guy. At this point in his development, he's a mature guy. We're always fuzzy with ages in novels, but let's say he's around somewhere between 35 and 38. He's engaged to be married. They're taking care of her niece. And, he's following the footsteps of his famous father, who started off as a stock trader before he went into academia and government service. And so Jack Ryan Jr. is actually down there in South America trying to put deals together, trying to make a name for himself as a private equity investor and venture capitalist. So I've enjoyed fleshing him out, thinking about how people just sort of do grow up in their late 30s, but they're still young enough to not have all the wisdom in the world, and you can have the character learn things along the way.
There you go. What do you think Tom Clancy fans will be most surprised in by Line of Demarcation? And are there any Easter eggs or callbacks longtime readers might recognize?
See, most surprised, I have some new tech that I am bringing in that is based on real world stuff. I just happen to put it through the defense procurement process a lot faster than probably in the real world.
Uh-huh.
There's that. It has to do with waterborne vehicles. And the Easter eggs, yeah, there, as I mentioned, this is a generational book, and so John Clark is in it, Domingo Chavez is in it, as well as the new characters, and there are carryover issues. It doesn't drive a lot of the plot, but there are carryover issues to another South American Clancy book, which was Clear and Present Danger, and those issues show up in this book as well, especially for John Clark, who is actively in Colombia, if you'll recall, in those books.
There you go. With Tom Clancy fans, if you were to see this Jack Ryan Jr. on the screen again, who do you think would best play them? Maybe do you want to curse it or anything? I don't know.
Well, when I was still in business, I was at Amazon Prime Video and worked on the show Tom Clancy Jack Ryan, as we called it, and it's coming back for another season soon. And that starred John Krasinski, and so to me it's kind of a John Krasinski character. He's about that age and about that size. I actually think he's well cast for it, and displays the right mixture of intelligence, a sense of humor, emotion, and just sort of physical action.
There you go. Well, it should be fun. Now, tell us the story. How did you come to first discover Tom Clancy? I guess when you were young, if I recall. And then how did it influence, your writing for your series personally that you do? And then also, how'd you get involved with Tom Clancy? How did you get the luck of that draw?
Yeah, I for the first time I read, much like everybody else, I read, it was had hot word of mouth was Hunt for Red October. And at the time I was a Naval ROTC scholarship student and couldn't think, was super excited to go into the Navy as an officer and all these kinds of things. And so when that book came out, it was really the first novel I had read where it sounded right to me, like the way people talked in the ranks and like the little stuff around the setting were all correct. And I all of us admired that. And then once I got on active duty, there were more of these books. And so it became, more and more popular over time. And so certainly it was very wrapped up in that. As I completed or, got towards the tail end of my business career and started writing, certainly those books were on my mind, but I wanted to modernize them and make them, kind of fit sort of more diverse personalities, which I did in my series. As I did my series, what the feedback or the positive feedback I got was around the authenticity, which is similar to Clancy. And so my editor was the same editor who had been doing Clancy for years, including Tom Clancy before he passed away. And so he asked me, "Hey, would you take this on?" And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, hell yes, of course I would. But he goes, before you say yes, realize there's a book due like every 7 months. So, I mean, this is the commitment. And he was right about that. It's been a significant commitment.
It really is. I mean, you've got this book coming out in May. You've got the other one coming out in September. What anything going on with your series and what you work on?
Yeah, I have a new standalone book coming out in September that is called Red Tide, a novel of the next Pacific War. And for Clancy fans, it would equate to Red Storm Rising. It's very much like Red Storm Rising. And this is the great smackdown between China and the U.S. navies on the high seas as China attempts to blockade Taiwan. to starve the world of chips. That's
Oh.
effectively the plot. And I based much of the action because in a battle like that in our current times, we have all these amazing modern weapons. They
Mhm.
completely rely on data links and communications. And the very first thing to go in one of these wars is going to be the data links and communications and satellites that power these weapons. So
Wow.
it ends up being a blind man's bluff kind of naval battle that I think has parallels to the Battle of Midway.
Oh, wow. That would be huge. Yeah, and something that we don't really want to see. Let's keep in the fiction books. It's
Oh
more
yeah,
fun.
yeah, no. May God grant it may it stay a work of fiction, but it was fun to think through all those as
Mhm.
an intellectual exercise to think
Yeah.
through how that would really unfold.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is interesting to see the strategy of that arena over there in this I don't know what you call it, the uh
South China Sea,
South
yeah,
China Sea, yeah.
yeah.
And some of the things they've been doing, the little islands, the threatening of the Philippines and Taiwan, the recent activities they've been doing where they've been doing military drills surrounding I think the recent one surrounded the whole island of Taiwan. Um,
Yep.
and boy, a lot of saber rattling going on over there. And it doesn't help that this new trade war that we got going on. You know,
In Red Tide, I had all the action start because of a trade war, and
did
so
you
kind of felt
really?
I did, and I mean I'm like, this was 2 years ago. We embargoed chips to them because we didn't want them to catch up to us in AI, and they said, well, you know what, your Navy's not that great, and we think we can just kind of surround this island and sort of affect things in our direction. And once we have all the chips, what are you going to do? And by the way, U.S., you're the aggressor here because you're the one who embargoed us,
Yeah.
right? And so I somehow or other, I don't quite know how the hell that happened. But to your point on the exercises, and this is in the book too, Red Tide. One of the things about those exercises is they're not only meant as exercises for them and to, maybe influence politics in Taiwan, but they're also meant to desensitize us. And so after a
Oh,
while, you're like, hey man, there's all these troops mass, and you're like, they do it every week,
me
and
too.
that happens in the book where people are going, well, isn't this a big deal? Yeah, they do it all the time.
Ah, and I mean that's kind of I don't know if that's kind of what we said about the Russia-Ukraine war when they amassed all the troops. Although I think the Biden administration had intelligence on that he was really
That one,
interested in the war.
yeah, I felt like on that one it was unusual enough. They're like, wow, they're really
Yeah,
massing
they're really they're
troops, and then
really
you're like,
going
what?
at it.
Yeah, they really gonna do that? Yeah, well,
Yeah,
turns out they
yeah.
are. Yeah.
Turns out they did. Yeah. There you go. So all the good stuff. So you've got we've talked about some of the things you have going on, some of the things that are in works for you. How do you keep your storytelling fresh and relevant? That's got to be hard, especially with politics constantly changing. The world, definitely the world order is kind of thrown amok from the last 75 years, 100 years, or how long has it been
Yeah,
since World War II? 45. So almost 80
80
years.
years. Yeah.
Jesus, I'm old. Yeah, I'm like
Well, it's
500
not
years
like you
old.
were there.
Yeah, well, I sure felt that way because I was always cowering under my desk with the Russians. Seeing us cozy to the Russians right now is really weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, somebody's got to be useful. It ain't in this world. Um, it turns out it's us this week. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird what's going on, and to see, I grew up reading books on politics and studying great leaders and all that sort of good stuff, and one of my first books was 1000 Days with Schlesinger on the John F. Kennedy administration. And it was interesting to see the CIA, how it steered him into the Bay of Pigs, and of course the strategy of war, studying Eisenhower and McCarthy and the strategy of wars and how they played out and battles. I used to collect ships and all the military stuff as a kid. So it's interesting. And so how do you keep that fresh and relevant, I guess?
Well, first to comment on the geopolitical environment. I mean, we really went through after World War II, we went through this Cold War from 45 to 91. That really drove all the spy thriller fiction, John le Carre. And Clancy, was born in that. When that ended, and the world really went into globalization mode, there weren't a whole lot of threats out there in the late 90s. And then after 9/11, it all turned into terrorism. Now we're at a position where the shift is away from terrorism in the real world and in thriller fiction back to what I would call sort of imperial classic geopolitics, right? Where it's great power competition, trying to compete for spheres of interest, and that means that it's devolving somewhat from a safer, globalized world, which is creating all these issues. So that I think that lends freshness to the plots, but the plots are all just settings for the characters. I think the way you keep the fiction fresh is in character development, and putting characters in unusual situations, giving them unusual backgrounds. So, for example, in the book Red Tide, the key hero is an admiral who was about to retire, who really didn't expect to end up commanding this fleet, and he's in a sort of a different discipline. But as others fail, he keeps being right about stuff, and then they elevate it. And so having an admiral in charge of something that's filled with self-doubt, was kind of a fun character exploration. In the Jack Ryan Jr. series, I think it's Jack picking up family responsibilities and having all of a sudden to make choices like, okay, am I going to charge off and do this and leave my fiance behind, or am I going to leave my job because I'm more serious about this over here? Choices that we've all, forks in the road that we've all had in our lives.
Yeah, and it's pretty complicated being a Navy admiral. I mean, you guys have to deal with, I think we've had some Navy folks on that ran ships, and you guys have to know how to deal with the nuclear issues internally, like if the reactor on the ship decides it wants to go south or something, or there's some sort of other quandary in that sense. I mean, I was talking to one, I was like, holy crap, there's like a lot more you have to think about on these ships.
Oh, it's and you said you guys, just to be clear, I was never an admiral, not even close.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
but writing about it, and treating it more like a journalist, honestly. Yeah, it is. I would just describe it. You have a lot of great leaders on your shows that run complicated enterprises. It's a complicated enterprise, and you're a leader of a massive staff of people, managing this enterprise, and that enterprise involves tens of thousands of people in a battle group, and dozens of ships at times. And yes, some of the larger ones have power plant issues, and where are we on the nuclear reactor core, where are we on the airplanes in terms of airframe stress, and how is their fuel coming along. And so keeping this entire warfighting capability is fantastically complex, and I don't think it's something that most civilians ever really let's just say we take it for granted. We probably accept that it probably is complex, but we hope that somebody out there's got it. And the guys to whom you refer are incredibly talented individuals for a reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like a city in the ocean, isn't it? On a boat, basically.
It's more than a city, more like a county, because it's
really
a collection of cities.
Wow.
Yeah, well, because you've got, in any carrier strike group, you've got the aircraft carrier itself. You've usually got a couple of ships on plane defense that are, cruisers, destroyers. You've got a submarine prowling around, et cetera. So it is, and then there's all the support ships that feed those guys. But yeah, it's complex.
It's amazing, all those armadas and stuff like that. How do you feel your experience as a U.S. Naval Intelligence officer influences you in writing about this stuff, and of course it keeps you abreast of all the details? Do you find you have to keep up with technology too? Some of the new things like drones and crap are going on. It's really interesting how the art of war is changing, maybe.
Yeah, I think about it kind of like if I had been a doctor a while ago and I was writing about medicine. Remember how Michael Crichton used to do that, and he was a doctor. And I think in that case, your medical training, you would know how doctors think and the issues that they faced. I think it's the same thing with me currently writing about military issues or intelligence issues. I was trained in it, but it's been 20 some years. However, it hasn't. The technology has changed. The other things have not changed that much. We still talk about signals intelligence, and yeah, the satellites have changed in terms of technology, but there's still satellites, or drones have come in. But that there's always been aerial reconnaissance. So they're feeding systems that are a little more sophisticated, but the consumers of that intelligence are more or less the same. So the battle problem stays the same. The methodologies are similar, but the weapon systems and tech change. And I personally, having been in the tech industry for years, I'm very comfortable keeping up with the actual tech. And if anything, I'm super excited when I see that the military is keeping up with it.
There you go. Yeah, and it's kind of wild now. Do you see more? Do you see more books maybe on these military novels incorporating AI? AI seems to be the big sort of issue there, where a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, I actually have that in this book, In Line of Demarcation, and I think that you can Hollywoodize AI, right? I was rewatching the last Mission Impossible movie, and there's this Russian submarine. It's got like this giant golf ball in the front that's like this brain with sparks coming off of it. Remember that scene? And then it sinks, and you need to get the key because it's the entity and it's going to control the world. I was like, hold on. So I think where we are with AI right now, though, as a large language model, as a predictive model, that could be, if you think about the world of intelligence, you're taking tens of thousands of points of data, and having a tool to assist an analyst put all those data points together and find things like patterns, that's certainly relevant and useful. It's not as sexy as I think people want to make AI out to be, but I think that is how the tool works, right? It analyzes patterns, and then it extends those patterns, and that's certainly going to be useful for somebody who's looking for patterns.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we've had conversations with people about should or should they not hook AI up to weapon systems or automatic weapon systems. I guess putting them in charge of launching nuclear things.
I mean, some of that's inevitable. If you think about a long-range missile system, it's going to have AI algorithms that say, okay, I was just detected. Now, what are my decisions? Oh, now there's a missile, a counter missile fired at me. What am I going to do? So it's like all these sort of countermeasures need to get down to the machine learning aspect. I think where you're headed is more like the trigger puller, right? Like at what point do we do that? And I happen to be studying an incident in the Cold War that was really scary, where the Russians had a system called OCO, and it was a preemptive system. And at the time, in 1988, they designed this, or 1983, sorry, they designed this intelligence database, and they were like, this intelligence database is flawless, and it will tell us the Americans are going to do a first strike, and when we get that happen, then OCO is going to launch. And they almost launched once. And the reason they almost launched is because there was a reflection of some clouds that fed one of the inputs to intelligence. And a human in the middle of it, a Russian guy, said, yeah, I don't buy it. Like, I just don't think they would launch one missile out of nowhere, blah, 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 and just decide not to do it. But that's an example of how, you can't take a man out of this. I think that's a very scary proposition.
Yeah. I think what some of the AI experts have talked about is, we have our AI, and I think we're going to try and make it good before we'd ever hook it up to something like that. But, some of these, these countries like China or Russia, or some sort of third world country that decides they just want to start having fun. We've kind of seen how India and Pakistan are about ready to go nuclear on each other. That if they have systems that are AI, but maybe they're not coded well or poorly put together, or ham-handed put together, they could hook that up to their systems, and we would have a situation we'd have to respond to if there was some sort of AI that was like, well, I'm halfway made. I'm going to launch missiles for fun. I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, that or has holes where it can be hacked, or vulnerabilities that other countries understand where they can manipulate it. So it's not only a scary prospect, but it's a reasonable. It's a reasonable predicate for another novel, if you ask
Yeah.
me.
Hey, AI, how do you stop nuclear war? Well, you kill off all the humans first.
Hey, remember that happened? That happened in you and I are probably old enough to remember Matthew Broderick in War Games. Remember that movie a million years ago?
Yeah,
Right. And you remember that he was like dealing with a computer, and it was like, ooh, computer. And at the time, he was like, okay, so here's the situation. Here's us and the Russians, and it would always end in Armageddon. It was thought as kind of the only answer. Like, well, here we are, 40 years later, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. We think we're pretty smart humans. We figured out how to destroy the whole world at once, all of us. Good
Very
job.
clever.
Very
clever.
Very good. Yeah. Can you solve world hunger, for Christ's sake? Anyway.
No, can't do that.
Can't do that.
Planet. Right.
Yeah, we got styrofoam boxes for the ozone layer and nuclear bomb. I can't remember the line from Rockin' in America. Keep on Rockin' in America by Neil Young.
Neil Young.
Neil Young. That line, there's a line that he has.
Free world, yeah.
Yeah, we got bombs for, we got bombs for babies. And yeah. Anyway, fun is fun. That's, we're a weird group of people, this human race. But anything more we want to tease out, Mr. Woodward, before we go? All that good stuff in .coms you want people to look at.
I'm at mpwoodward.com. I also write blogs on there about geopolitics that help inform my stuff. But 3 books up for pre-sale: Line of Demarcation, Terminal Velocity, and Red Tide coming in the fall.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show again. We'll look forward to having you hopefully soon here coming up.
Genuine pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
There you go. Thank you. And thanks, audience, for tuning in. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold. Tom Clancy, Line of Demarcation, a Jack Ryan Jr. novel, out May 20th, 2025. You got about 6 more days to pick it up. Pre-order it so you can be the first one on your block to read it and know all the deets. Thanks, audience, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss won the TikTokity and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.